All right, everybody, welcome back to Speed Stuff for Trans Lives 2. I'm here with RP Green with Klonoa 2, Lunatea's Veil. How are you doing today?
Hello, thank you very much for having me. Good. Yes, I'm NickRPGreen. I run Klonoa 2. Been running Klonoa 2 for about 10, 11 years. And it's lovely to showcase the new remastered version. It only came out in July. I'm not alone though. I have brought Neil Legend along with me. Hi, Neil.
Hello. My name is Neil Legend. I also do runs of this game. I am going to be co-commentating with Mr. NickRPGreen.
All right. So before we get started, the first question I have to ask is, did the incentive get met?
Oh, yeah. Just during intermission, I was watching it in real time, and we have the All Visions incentive met.
Fantastic. So we will explain the difference between any percent and All Visions as we go along. I'm going to save over save 3. So this is going to be a normal difficulty game. The main reason for it being normal rather than easy or hard is, as I said, this is the remastered version of the original PlayStation 2 version that came out in 2001. On that version, there were no difficulties. There was just the one difficulty, and that difficulty is normal in this. So that's why we specifically play on normal rather than easy or hard. So I'm going to start the game now. Time will start when I actually gain control of Klonoa in the first level. So who wants to count us down?
Oh, are we doing a countdown here? Yeah. Okay,
Neil,
I got it.
count us
I was
down.
waiting for the other guys. What, you want to do a count on 3? All right, here we go. We run
Go
starts
for
in
it.
3, 2, 1. Let's go. Wahoo.
Go! Alrighty, so Klonoa 2 Lunatea's Veil. Now, this is a very big category name. To actually give it its full title, this is actually Klonoa Fantasy Reverie Series, Klonoa 2 Lunatea's Veil, All Visions, Normal, Support Mode. Now, All Visions includes that thing. That is called a Mommet doll. There are 6 Mommet dolls in every single level, and we have to collect all of them in an All Visions run. The reason for that is, as the name implies, All Visions means we have to do every level. The levels are called missions, and we have to do all of them. And there are 2 bonus visions that are unlocked by collecting all of the Mommet dolls in every single level. So that is why I am going out of my way, taking this rather longer path around this room in order to grab that doll. So that's the All Visions explained. Normal, I already explained as we kicked off. Support mode. Support mode, you may notice there's like a little flying dog behind me that is propelling me up into the air on occasion. That is Popka, and Popka was present in the original 2001 PS2 game. And he's back, and he's actually lent his power to the first game in the series, Klonoa 1, which is also part of this series. His power wasn't available in the original PlayStation version, but they added it to this. So the speedrunners of the first game have really enjoyed breaking that game apart with this new power. Basically, it's controlled using a second joypad, although because I'm on the PC version, I get to use WASD to just make it all happen from the same gamepad, which is really nice on the hands. You don't have to use 2 game controllers at the same time, which was something I had to do on the PS2 version all the time, and it really does a number on your hands after a while. So yeah. And the idea behind the support mode was, this is a game designed for kids. You were playing along, and your little brother or sister wanted to join in, so they picked up the second controller, pushed the button, and on command you tell them, right, push it now, and Popka will give you a little boost up into the air, and you get past a jump or anything like that. Well, as a speedrunner, of course, we can completely abuse Popka. We can get him to skip puzzles, skip platforming sections, all sorts of stuff. And there's a couple of really cool glitches exclusive to support mode that we'll get to show off as well. We are now coming to the end of the first vision. That was pretty quick. So there we go. That is the first vision. Sea of Tears now complete.
Yes.
And we should we get the little confirmation there that we got the Momet doll. And we are now going, for the first time, to visit Bagage's Island, which is something that will happen a few times throughout. Bagage's Island is not a playable level. It is just a cutscene. Basically, in the story, whenever we don't know what to do, we go back to Bagage to find out what we're going to do next. And what he's told us to do is he wants us to go and visit the priestesses up in the mountains, because they understand that there's something wrong in the world. There's weird voices screaming out, and we've been charged with going and finding out what's going on. So we're going to head through Lalakusha in order to find that out.
Yes.
So Neil,
sorry,
tell us about Lalakusha. Tell us about Lalakusha.
Oh, right. So Lalakusha, I guess there's two different ways. I pronounce it this way, Lalakusha. I'm sure there's a correct way of saying it. Again, this is the second level of the game Klonoa 2 Lunatea's Veil. One interesting thing that we do get to see here at one point is the exploits or the skips that Nick actually mentioned that we use with Popka to skip, right? How do you say it? Also, we get to see some more interesting movement, right? Because we get these bounce pads, a lot of more of the cannons, also these little whirlwind things that were actually on the first level, but they're more prominent here. Right, because this is not just like a hold and right level, it just kind of goes all over the place.
So in this next room, we're going to see one of those glitches we can do. Klonoa on the PlayStation 2, Klonoa is kind of like it was a hidden gem of the PlayStation era. And it's a really good example of a 2.5D game, and we can completely abuse 2.5D by going, using the Y-axis in ways that the game wasn't expecting us to. Just like that jump that I did there.
It looks really cool. Like Nick mentioned earlier, unfortunately for the PlayStation 2 version of this game, we had to use two controllers. You can imagine just having to either have the main controller controlling Klonoa right in your hands, and if you were to just maybe have like the other controller maybe like on your foot, you can hit the circle button to make that happen, or I don't know, have some sort of different grip, right? It's very uncomfortable, and I can't really speak from personal experience because I never ran the original version of this game for support mode. But I'm sure Nick can make some comments or two about that.
Was basically like having one controller on the desk, and just sort of hovering, one little pinky over the square button to fire whenever I needed was and on the original, of course, we didn't have the loading times that we have on this one. And it was that run was nearly 2 hours. This was thanks to loading and being able to skip through cutscenes a lot quicker. This one does not go on anywhere near as long. That was our last Momet doll of this level. We're going to come to the end of Lalakusha.
That some of these Momet dolls are pretty well hidden. In my own personal experience running this game, we're actually learning the route for this game because I'm one of the original runners for this category on KPRS. I found myself originally missing a lot of them because of situations like that where they would be hitting, you actually have to move Klonoa over the egg, right? We saw an example of that also in the first level. I think it was the fourth Momet doll, right? So it can actually mess you up there in some fashion. I'm also sure that Nick can say something to that degree because I witnessed him miss some of these dolls during his other runs.
Yes, learning where they all were was a bit awkward at times. This is the first boss, by the way. This is Folger and the Armor Beast. And as you can see, in true boss style, he has a massive glowing weak spot. So it's very easy to know where we're going to hit him. We're now getting to phase 2 of the fight. And there's something quite special about the boss fights in this game. Because throughout the game in the levels, there is no RNG in the game. Enemies always spawn at the same times, enemies always move in the same ways and things like that. The bosses, on the other hand, are pure RNG. They can go in different ways, they can move in different places, the enemies that we throw at them can spawn in different places. Give us a pose, Klonoa. Yeah. There's loads of different ways that the bosses can move, and that's where a lot of the time loss comes from. That wasn't too bad a fight. It was a little bit messy at the start. I missed a couple of the throws. But we are going to head back to Bagaji, which is the trigger for our host to read out any donations.
Yes, I remember this phrase. Check it out, folks. We got a new incentive coming up for tomorrow. It's Frogun's Brutal Rush incentive. This is a boss rush mode that's going to be harder than the standard boss rush that's included in the game. It has bosses with new attack patterns. It's going to be a much more intense fight. And Frogun, if you've never heard of it before, I was really stoked when the demo came out, like 2 years ago. This is inspired by games like Klonoa and like Croc, and all the classic 3D platforming PlayStation games. Please, when this incentive gets me, it's gonna be so much fun. That game is so much fun. So please get some more donations in. Thank you so much.
So I want to.
I can highly recommend Frogun. It's a really fun game to watch.
Right. Sorry for kind of interrupting there. I did want to make a mention here. This is the first slider level in the game. You notice that Klonoa is actually riding on what looks like a snowboard. Again, technicalities aside, this might be called a wind board. I'm not 100% sure. Because Klonoa is part of the wind, right? Klonoa of the wind. I think that's one of the names he carries. Right, but one interesting thing about these levels is that it actually introduces an element of actual 3D when you have the camera pointed in this direction, right? Whether it's facing from behind or in front, right? You get this full 3D control, so you're no longer essentially moving from left to right. You have a free reign of movement there.
Now, in an any percent run where we're not worried about grabbing Marmot dolls, the slider levels, there's 4 of them plus 1.5 bosses, if I recall correctly. The slider levels are a lot of fun. There's not really much to do apart from move around, make sure you don't get hit by enemies. We actually want to move in a straight line as much as possible because in these sections where we're going forwards or away from the camera. We want to move in a straight line because Klonoa is slightly slower when he's turning. When we're doing an all visions run, however, it adds a large element of danger. As you'll have seen when we're moving, just in the normal platforming levels, we have complete free movement going left, right, up, down, wherever we want to go. In these, we don't. And if we miss one of these Marmot dolls, it is going to cause some problems. We're going to have to either reset the level or try and take a death before we get the next checkpoint. Now, luckily, the checkpoints are very clear. The clocks that I've been collecting are checkpoints. We can avoid collecting them if we need to, but obviously, any time where I miss one, it is going to slow us down. And in this level, this is Jungle Slider. They're relatively straightforward. Towards the end of the game, as we get into some of the harder slider levels, there's one level in particular that's some really nasty ones. So I'm hoping I can get those first try. Here's our penultimate one for this level. And now for the reason that we're here. We gained an element from ringing a bell. There's a story behind that. I can't remember what it is. It's quite a complicated story. And this cat, now called Tat, they were really inventive with the names, had stolen it. Well, except not really. Tat has this special ability where she can split herself into 2. She's actually a purple and white cat, but this one's just purple. She split herself into 2 and run off into different areas of the park. We had a choice as to which level we did first, and it doesn't matter which one you do first, the other Tat has the element. So we now get this cutscene where he's trying to find the element, and she's like, haha, you got the wrong one. Now you got to go chase down the white one. So now that we're done with that level, we're going to shift over and head into Jolien.
I do want to actually interject here. We do have a sort of interesting setting here moving forward where we're essentially visiting these different parts of Lunatea, and the levels themselves are broken into 2 different sections. So, for example, we're here in Jolien. We did have the jungle slider level, and then this is Fun Park, right? But they're both tied to the same setting, right? It's pretty neat, if you really think about it, because it kind of adds some form of continuity, if we're going to call it that, right? And it just kind of ties things together.
Lunatea is split into a bunch of different kingdoms. This is the kingdom of Jolien, and each kingdom brings its own sort of unique flavor to it, which we'll talk a little bit more about when we move into the next kingdom, because the next kingdom is it really shows a stark contrast. Right now, the whole of Jolien, by the name itself, Jolien, it's all about fun, it's all about the fair, it's all about clowns and joy and laughter and stuff. The townsfolk don't care for work; they're here to enjoy themselves and have fun and watch all the sideshows and stuff. And it is in quite stark contrast to the second
right, that would
kingdom that we'll be visiting.
Right, I think it's the Kingdom of Discord, right? Discord being the adjective chaos, right? Because it's a kingdom that's constantly at war with its inner inhabitants. And of course, that also means that there's going to be mass destruction in the setting following. Right, but I feel like it'll speak more for itself once we actually arrive to the actual kingdom. I'm pretty sure Nick can also attest to the actual destruction of that. Just a lot of chaos.
Indeed. Now, what fairground wouldn't be without a haunted, spooky house? Which Chloe's fine with. Chloe's just like, oh, yeah, I'm not scared. It's absolutely fine. Our priestess friend Lolo, on the other hand, is absolutely terrified. Lolo, you probably haven't really seen yet. She lives inside the ring that we're carrying. She's the one who's actually producing the wind bullet that we are firing. So whenever we see like Klonoa just tossing the ring casually over a moving platform or chasm, just remember that his friend is inside it, and if it were to take a tumble, then she'd just be lost forever. And he just does it so casually.
Consider
puzzle time.
Personal assistance of sorts in that regard. Thankfully, in this game, well, we have 2 of them, right? We have Lolo and Popka, except Popka serving a special purpose here in this run for giving us that, second jump, right? And allowing us to do all these interesting things that we normally wouldn't be able to do without them.
Like, completely skip all of the mechanics in a room. We didn't interact with any of the mechanics in that room to hit those switches because we could use Popka to bring our own Moo into the room. That is the last moment, so I'm just going to throw that flagger behind me. And we've got a little mini-boss here. Now, the mini-bosses didn't have names in the original, so they added names to the health bars. And this one, again, they didn't really go with anything overly creative or inventive. This boss is called Ghost Balloons. They took the name quite literally. But it's not actually Ghost Balloons. It's really Tat in disguise. Oh,
it's a really interesting choice
cat.
Too, because the original game didn't have any sort of headers for the bosses. And you did mention earlier, Nick, that every boss has RNG. I want to just append a bit of a correction here. Most of the bosses have RNG, right? However, for bosses like this or the mini boss, it's pretty deterministic. You can just actually hit the boss just 3 times using I think it's called Keaton, right? Just 3 times back to back. Yes,
Keaton, that's it.
And we have that middle boss we'll actually be seeing here soon, where it's, I think, the only boss that's, well, in addition to this one, that's actually a mid-level boss, right? Every other level is just basically having a goal of getting from point A to point B.
which is quite unlike Klonoa 1. I believe the bosses in Klonoa 1 are all part of individual levels. There's no boss levels. I think. To this day, I still haven't completed Klonoa 1.
Klonoa via the Fantasy Reverie series, I can confirm that the actual end world bosses reside in every second level. Because the way the level structure is for Klonoa in general, at least for the first and second game, is that they're divided into visions, right? They're not called levels, they are called visions. It's really interesting here too, because for Klonoa 2, the boss stages are in their own visions, whereas in the first game, they are part of the second vision of every single world. With the exception of the final vision, that's a special enough fight that it actually has its own vision.
This is our next boss. This is Leptio the Flower Clown. He is at the same time my favourite and least favourite boss. Least favourite because some of his RNG and some of his moves can be a bit annoying. The start of the fight. Oh, cool. Sorry, if you grab a moo just as it's supposed to explode like that, you can grab it when you shouldn't be able to. That's quite a tight window for grabbing that. It's gotta. There we go. Had to wait for more moves to spawn before I could throw that one. This is gonna be a really nice phase 2 thanks to that. Leptio can be very random, but I absolutely love Leptio because of the noises he makes and his design is, he's just this amazing clown that just laughs. Like, you hit him and he falls, he falls great distances and he's just.
Right, you really have this interesting contrast where he's presenting himself as a very spooky sort of villain, right? But he's also this kind of goofy boss to fight, given all the noises that he just makes, right? You kind of get that as well because you see like all the colors and stuff. You kind of associate that, being very playful, but then you also have the darkness just kind of looming in the background there with the setting.
All right, once more, we are going back to Bagaji to learn where to go next.
Right, folks, just want to remind everybody while we're here donating for this charity marathon, Speed Stuff for Trans Lives 2, raising money in support of Equality Texas Foundation. To donate, please type !donate in the chat and follow the Tiltify link. You can also apply your donation to the Frogun incentive for tomorrow. Dono gun for Frogun. Even if you can't donate, we appreciate your company here, supporting us by watching the show. Thank you so much.
Beautiful timing. All right, we are now going into Volk, the Kingdom of Volk, and we're going to head into the city first of all. And as a very famous bee in a very bad movie once asked, I'm going to ask the audience the same thing. Do you like jazz? Because if you don't, you're going to be really disappointed with the soundtrack to Volk.
Yeah, it's really interesting too because, like we did mention earlier, this is a Kingdom of Discord. Everybody's kind of been fighting with each other, but you have this really nice kind of jazz beat where it just kind of creates this sort of clashing of ideas. But in any case, it's very welcoming to listen to this track. This is one of my favorite tracks in the whole game.
Yeah, same. The other nice thing about this track is it's dynamic as well. At the moment, we're in the sewers. We're underneath Volk City. But as you'll hear in a second, we're gonna take this Keton out of here.
That's not actually a Keton. I think this is a Jetimu. I remember we were.
Yeah, Jetimu, not a Keton's the helicopter one. But as we leave and come out to the street level, the music alters and we now get more of the instruments. Oh, got it, nice. That's a bit of a hidden Momet doll there. It took me a long time to go back and work out where that one was. I've missed one. I can't find it anywhere. It's not anywhere. It's in front of the screen. It might be one of the only ones where it's ever in the foreground like that. Actually,
a little funny anecdote here. I remember how Nick was kind of struggling here to find some form of HUD to actually track the Momet progression in each stage. I was actually watching the stream itself, and I just was really wondering what he was looking for when it was right on his screen. It's like, it's under the health. And actually, I don't know if that was mentioned earlier. We actually know how many Moment dolls we've collected by looking at the health just right under those stars. Those are the Moment dolls that we are collecting, or the actual graphical user interface that tells us how many dolls we've collected.
It's because that interface didn't appear in the original. You may notice every time I collect one, I'm about to collect one, so you can check here. You'll see there's a little thing that appeared on the right-hand side to show me collecting it. That's the only thing that appears on the PlayStation 2 version, and you can push. I think it's L1. Oh, I'm gonna be got it. I can make a right mess of grabbing that one sometimes. On the PlayStation 2 version, I think you could push L1 and it would make that appear. And I was trying to work out, how do I make that? It's not this button. There's nothing in the control scheme to show it. I wish I could see how many Moment dolls I've got throughout. And then, you know, Neil in the chat was like, Nick, you do know it's there in the top left, right? It's like, oh yeah, of course it is.
Let's just say it was a awakening call, right? He doesn't realize it's really life-changing.
I've never been I've never changed since as a Klonoa runner. It was a very special moment for me. That was our last Moment doll of the level.
Doll, if I can also just make another comment, is a very easy doll to miss because most people running any percent just skip over that little pad that it rests on by doing a flutter to just skip it entirely. But it's just so well hidden depending on the aspect ratio you play the game in, which this version of Klonoa, it supports 2, 16:9 and 16:10. You missed that Moment doll and you grabbed that checkpoint. There's no way to go back other than retrying the level. So definitely a rude awakening for the individuals that have run this category and failed to collect that doll.
Oh
no.
No! My first death, unfortunately. Just didn't quite have the height there to hit that whirlwind. I will play that one a little safer this time round, I think. So I'll actually bounce off that instead. Shouldn't need to. I should have been able to reach that.
I think the collision on these these little whirlwind
clearly I started wiggling.
Actually, not completely, I guess, forgiving, right? Because you saw you were kind of fluttering there and it didn't register.
So we've already got all of the Moment dolls, so we can just get through to the end of the level. And here you start to see what we were talking about with the whole place is at war. We're going to see that statue get blown up now. Bye, statue. Boom. There he goes.
I've actually mentioned this before. For whatever reason, I look at the citizens of Volk, and specifically that statue in the middle, and I just have this thought of Tom Nook from Animal Crossing, just because of the pointed nose. Just kind of reminds me of them.
All right. Now, earlier we did witness Klonoa doing something very foolish. He was running on roller coaster tracks. Luckily, he's learnt his lesson. He's gonna stand on top of a train instead this time. This is not as dangerous as being on roller coaster lines. So, kids, if you're watching at home, kids, don't try that. Don't run on roller coaster tracks or jump on trains. Use public transport in safe means, please. All right, Underground Factory, this is where the fun begins.
Yes, and we do actually have a trick here that's coming up that's pretty difficult. So I'm thinking Nick's going to want some quiet here to focus and be able to land it.
You can explain it. I'm just going to be quiet.
So basically what we're going to be doing here, or what Nick is going to be doing here, is what's called a plane skip. And it's using the 2.5D mechanic. And he's also going to get a very large jump from the spring by a frame-perfect input of both jump buttons, because this game supports 2 jump buttons, actually. Oh, were you able to make it?
Just.
Oh, there we go. Yes, that's a very scary skip to go for, but I believe it saves around 20 seconds in-game time, as opposed to going around the original way. And it's fortunate enough that we can actually perform the skip in the All Visions category. If we were running 100%, which is actually a category that I'm running myself right now. That skip is unfortunately undoable because there are gems that need to be collected.
The reason that trick works is that a lot of items and different planes spawn when you hit a certain point on the ground. I'm going to demonstrate that here again. I'm going to use this boomy to keep up in the air here and despawn this door. This doorway that I'm walking through now, there should be a locked door. It's supposed to go over to the other side of the room, grab a key, and come back. But because the area for that door to spawn was the floor just before it, and I stayed above it the entire time, that door didn't spawn. So a really cool thing in this game. It happens a few times throughout the run, and it's one of the things that proves that this Fantasy Reverie remaster is using, or at least in some way using, the original source code from Klonoa 2, because these tricks are exactly the same as the PlayStation 2 version. If you've ever ran the PlayStation 2 version of this and think, oh, I don't want to relearn it, you don't have to relearn it. It works the same way. To the best of my knowledge, there is a single ignoring plane skip that doesn't work in this version that works in the PlayStation 2 version.
Aspect ratio as well. We do see another trick here that Nick's going to do. It's called a moo clip, and he's essentially going to be grabbing this moo and taking it under this pipe here. Normally you're not allowed to because the game tries to stop you, but if you wiggle around just enough, you can actually get the moo to go under there, as he just did.
There we go. So remember what I said earlier? The ring that we're carrying has Klonoa's friend Lolo in. He's quite happy to stand on a moving platform and just start throwing it around. What if he dropped it? What if he dropped it down into this pipe? He can't go back and get that. That's his friend lost forever.
I want to insert something here too. This is another interesting level, or this actually section, because it's very painful. If one thing goes wrong, you'll go ahead and see this here in a little bit. We do have a Moment doll at the end that is right before an auto checkpoint. Missing this doll has you retrying the level because there's no way to come back up here. And I've actually witnessed Nick miss it live on his stream.
Yep, that is 3 minute time loss. So here is our next mini boss in the middle of a level. This is Super Tatbot. Now I have no way of knowing this, but as I said before, the original PlayStation 2 version didn't have names for these, so Super Tatbot is completely made up for this version of the game. I like to think, even though I have no proof, this is just speculation, that it is a slight homage to the Super Tazbot. That is featured at speedrunning events like GDQ, where they have a Taz tool-assisted speedrun, which is usually called Super Tazbot. So there you go. Maybe one day I'll get proved right or wrong.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting.
Well, I hope it's true.
So in terms of tasks, we've actually had some interesting things happen in regards to tool-assisted speedrunning here. I think for the original game, for Klonoa Door to Phantom Isle PS1, right? And we're hoping as soon as time kind of passes by, we notice some task stuff here to maybe find some new interesting discoveries, maybe some frame-perfect execution tricks that'll actually lead us to either human possible times or simply just, computer possible. And I'm pretty sure there's an accurate way of describing that.
And that's our last Moment doll of Underground Factory. Cube. Underground Factory is one level where things can go wrong, and you can lose an awful lot of time, particularly if you just forget a Moment doll.
One of the longer stages.
It is worth noting that any Moment dolls you collect are retained upon completing a level. However, you can't just restart a level in the middle of, you have to redo the entire level. So if we do miss one at any point and then hit a checkpoint and can't go back in the middle of the level, the quickest thing to do is to immediately return to the world map and just start the level from fresh. But hopefully that won't happen. We've got another boss coming up, and this boss is unique, and it is the only boss that doesn't have RNG. And I will let Neil explain it whilst I concentrate on getting it right.
Like Nick said, this is the one boss that's actually completely deterministic. While I did mention earlier, some of the other bosses have sections or, like, I guess, portions of their fights that are deterministic. This guy is really just kind of following a pattern, really, just to take him out. You jump onto the little trampoline things and you just drop the moves that are just so conveniently hovering over them to knock him on the head there. See, he's not really taking a liking to it. He's just going all over the place. Right. I'm not sure if Nick is going to go for a super super swag shot here. Right. Oh, yeah, there we go. If you just time that right, you actually can hit Biscarch with a direct hit like that, as opposed to tossing the Moo down.
Oh, I missed the second one.
Yeah, you did miss the second one. But this is a very, very scary boss. You see him, he's just got like these wheels ready to crush a Klonoa at a moment's notice.
One out of two super swag shots isn't bad. I'll take that.
He is down and out. Vision clear.
There we go. Mobile Tank Biscarch is defeated, destroyed. We definitely won't see him again. But now one trope from Klonoa 2 is that we redo levels a few times. We've actually, a couple of the levels that we've already done, we are going to revisit. But Klonoa does very, very well at making these levels feel fresh and different. So this is Volk City again, but it's now called Vulcan Inferno. The reason it's called Vulcan Inferno is, well, you can see everything's on fire! However, the reason for that is when we first arrived at Volk Hall, which is where we just had that boss fight, but before we went to the other levels, we noticed that our main antagonist, Leorina, was trying to craft her own ring, the ring that we're firing from. She was trying to craft her own, which sounds like that's probably a bad thing. We don't really want her to do that. So in order to stop the machine that she was using to try and craft it, we went to the two different power generators that are in the city. One was in the city itself, and one was in the underground factory. We turned both of them off. When we went back, we found that the security machine had gone haywire, so we had to destroy it. Unfortunately, as you may have seen in the world map, Volk is home to a very large nuclear power station, and without power, that nuclear power station is now going to go into meltdown. So we are now returning to Volk City to get through it again to turn the power back on. And oh, what's going on here?
Oh no!
What could this? He's back! Run! Yes, we thought we had defeated him, but not yet.
And this is really one of the more interesting sections in the game, because we actually see a boss come back from after we defeat him, right? He's actually becoming even more of a threat because he's just out for blood, right? He's moving very dangerously towards Klonoa, and this is just one of those sections. If this were a Crash Bandicoot game of some sort, and you had the camera just pointed in front of Klonoa, it'd be pretty neat. But we get a sideways perspective of that, where Klonoa is essentially running towards that generator, and also for his life, right?
It is an instant kill. No three hearts with this. If I get hit by him, but we're okay. We've gone down into the sewers now. We'll be safe in the sewers. Can't get us in the sewers. I don't think he can get us in the sewers.
He has a very hulking frame, so I don't think he's going to be making his way into the sewer anytime soon.
Ignore all of the enemies here and just use Popka to get up and grab the
So one thing I
Jetamu
actually
here.
want to make a note of is that while our revisits to these levels are, well, based on the same settings, the actual locations of the dolls do vary in some point. Case in point, actually, that little section before we hopped up into this fire room has a Momet doll in the upper left corner. As to the revisit of this room, it's completely gone. It's actually somewhere else. It's actually coming up here. So it's important to know the differences whenever doing the all editions category.
Oh no, he can fly! Run! It's fine. He's not going to catch me.
You just gotta keep moving, man.
I don't need to. There's no Momet doll on that bounce pad, so I can ignore it this time.
That the Momet dolls are in completely separate locations on revisits.
Yes, if this was the original level, we'd have got them all by now, but we've still got 2 more to go. And the next one's a little bit tricky. It's never nice trying to grab a Momet doll when you're flying.
You're being chased.
Not while we're being chased. The next one is here. Got it. I'm quite glad I got that one. That one can be a bit of a doozy. So we've only got 1 more to go. The machine is still following us. However, we make a lot of distance on it. The game is completely designed and balanced around not using Popka. Popka is only supposed to be there as an aid. You are supposed to be able to fully complete the game without him. So we get way ahead of it in ways that the game doesn't really anticipate we will. Now we go into this sort of sideways movement where he's sort of running and chasing us and spinning us around. I do need to grab that. I'm going to try and keep up in the air so he turns back round again. Now we can run for the exit. Luckily he hasn't got his laser out anymore, so it's not an instant kill. So rather than waiting for him to jump here, I will just take the hit. Bye-bye! And if you recall Vault City, you'll know that we are now at the end of the level. Going to grab this Jetimu, take him up onto the train. I hope the train comes again. That was very good timing from that train before. Unfortunately, we'll skip the cutscene for time purposes, but the train and the robot crash. But Klonoa ducks out of sight, and he's fine. He's very agile.
It is certainly is a sight to behold. Just seeing the Scarish being destroyed by the train.
It is back to Bagashi, but this one's a pretty quick one because it's important to explain where we're heading next. So I will, I'll let Bradder continue his break before we call on him again. So we're now going to head into the third kingdom. This is the kingdom of Mirror Mirror. But in order to get there, we need some transportation. And what better transportation than an Ark? This is Ishra's Ark. Ishra's Ark is a very puzzle-heavy level. The levels do vary a lot. You know, some are very action platforming orientated. Obviously, there's the slider levels, which are very action orientated. This is very much a puzzle orientated level. And we're going to get introduced to a new enemy, which is going to form a lot of the puzzle types that we will see throughout the rest of the run. And that enemy will be in the very next room, and it's called a Lakuri. And it's a very, very clever
and I can actually
mechanic.
go ahead and explain that here if you can give me a chance. So the way the Lakiri works, you actually end up grabbing them, and they can actually absorb the enemies that Klonoa either uses a double jump to absorb, or just by throwing them either in the side, foreground, background. You know, and just it does change color. We do have gems that actually match those colors, and you know. You want to be able to match the colors together to actually get rid of the obstacles to clear. I think Nick's going to be doing a move clip to actually hit a Momet doll in the background, which normally you would use a Lakiri to do, because there is a period of time that the Lakiri actually has to traverse back into Klonoa's hands. You would be able to use that time to reposition him and actually get the Momet doll that way.
So here, as you can see, there's a red jewel ahead of me, so I need to charge the Likuri 3 times.
It's quite
And
nice.
now it's red.
Skip coming up here. We call it Engine 1 skip, and you can just let it speak for itself.
Nope. Luckily, there is a checkpoint right here. Very rarely get it on the first try. It's slightly easier. Oh, I wasn't quite high enough there. Come on.
This is not one of the easier skips. Essentially, what Nick is trying to do is he's using Popka to get some extra height here and actually reach the moose so we can bring him back. And it'll give us even more height to actually jump up to a platform that's at the top of this room.
There we go. Phew, got it.
It is a very hard trick to pop off. I myself actually had troubles getting it a couple of times when I started doing this category.
It saves a good couple of minutes. Does that? The whole idea of this level is we're going to visit the 3 engines and power them on. We've just skipped the first one. We will not be going to the first engine and powering that on now. Now I do have a key on me. Unfortunately, keys are set to each of their own doors, so I do have to collect another key because that key will now open the door that I now need to go through.
In the first place, because the actual HUD for the key being collected doesn't update, so it's almost if the other key is just being tossed, at least in the internal game memory, and being updated with this new key. Right, but if it were the actual former situation, we would not have to grab that key and thus save more time. It's just unfortunate that is not the case.
So we're now in engine 2, and for the engines we need to use a Likuri. As you'll see, the engine is glowing. Oh, whoops! Try that again. The engine is glowing red, so we need to make this Likuri go red by throwing it at 3 enemies. And then we can just throw the Likuri into the engine. So that now powers it up, which starts moving some of the objects in the game. So I was on one of those spinning wheel platforms when I did the skip earlier. If I'd gone into the engine room, that would have caused that platform to start spinning, and we would have gone back and then done it. But that's the advantage of using the skip there.
It's important that
so we're now going to head back to
the skip that he just did earlier is support exclusive. It's not really possible to clear on standard mode because you don't have the extra height or distance to actually perform it. And so the way Nick actually did this right now, as opposed to just going to the left and grabbing the Likuri, he actually went for the 3rd Moment doll to optimize the actual cycle here of the spinning thing, because otherwise he would have to wait some extra seconds to be able to grab the Likuri. That's the 2nd switch activated.
That's 2 engines down, 1 engine to go. So we're going to head over there now.
So
I hope you like randomized noises that play
here.
constantly.
There's a bit of a debacle or debate as to whether or not there's actually a more optimal way of collecting this specific Moment doll. The way I actually collect it is by doing the snipe. It's kind of what Nick just did there, although I do it from way farther. And I think
I wanted to play a little safer than I normally would do.
Right. However, there's also an alternative, and I'm not sure if this was actually mentioned earlier, and if it wasn't, I'll go ahead and mention it now. The actual moment progression for any level is persistent over death, which is actually going to open up some really neat opportunities here moving forward in the future levels. Essentially, they're death warped, and we'll be able to abuse them to reduce on the amount of backtracking we need to do.
Last Moment doll is here. So that's all of them done.
Yes, and it's also
now we just need to
important
finish the
note
level.
here. We would actually be able to do a second skip, which would be engine 3 skip, if we were playing on easy difficulty. Or because we are playing on normal, the game is actual ring bullet distance is set to the original game's bullet distance. Whereas in easy, it's actually extended enough to where you can grab that green moo in the background and just use him to get the extra height needed to clear the level there. So unfortunately, we do have to make a lap around and activate the third engine.
I hope everyone has enjoyed Ishra's Arc here, because it's not the last time we're going to see Ishra's Arc.
Is really one of the earliest levels that shows its length right away. This is not a short level. There are certainly a lot of components and stuff to actually completing it, as noted by the 3 engines we have to activate.
Now, I always remember when I was first learning and getting used to the PlayStation 2 version all those years ago, Ishra's Arc would always be the point where I'm like, you know what? I think I'll take a break. I think I'll leave it there for tonight, and I'll come back and carry on practicing another day. But luckily, that changed over the years as I got better.
And it's thanks to Popka that this level is made a lot faster. Because again, with standard mode, we would actually have to be paying visits to all of these 3 engines. And Nick did mention the engine 1 skip saves minutes of time here. So of course, it's always more desirable to have this extra jump, or in this scene, probably like the aid of Popka. Right, since we did make the lap around, that green moo actually positions in front. You're supposed to use the moo to grab a set of gems across that section, because we're playing all visions, we don't have to worry about them. And that's Ishra's Arc completed.
One of the things that I absolutely adore about this game is its soundtrack. It has an amazing soundtrack. There's so much variance with it. But there is one track in particular that just is hands away better than the rest. It is this level, Mountains of Mirror Mirror. I'm just going to play the level, not going to say anything. I'm going to let you enjoy the Wahoo Stomp. Ooh,
Oh, you missed
that was unfortunate. I did indeed miss that doll. Too busy dancing.
You're really jamming out there.
There we go. That one is a bit of an awkward one. But it does mean we get to listen to this piece of music just a little bit longer.
I'm inclined to believe
We're about
you know
to
the
finish the
lyrics.
level.
What?
It does have an English translation. The language that's being spoken in the game is called Phantomilion, which is a reference to the first game, Daughter Phantomile. However, because the game also includes full English subtitles, there is a community who, years ago when the game first came out, managed to go through and work out what a lot of the noises and sounds of the language means. So as a result, even though there's no... there is no English subtitles for that song, the Wahoo Stomp. It has been translated
That's
into
incredible.
English.
That really is so cool.
Thank you for indulging me and just letting everyone enjoy the Wahoo. So that tends to be what I do during a speed run, because it's just my favorite piece of music. And we move on to one of the most gorgeous levels in the game. This is the mountains of Mirror. Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself.
I got you, man.
Neil will take over.
He was trying to do a little switch puzzle here that you have to use the Excite Boomy for. And again, not sure if this was mentioned earlier, but there are two types of boomies in this game. You have the smaller pink ones that are called Excite Boomies, and then the regular ones, which are the giant red ones, right? Like Nick was saying, this is one of the really more beautiful levels in this game. Not only because it's very, I guess, it has a lot of contrast, right? Because you're inside this museum and you have all this art surrounding you. You can actually notice that the reflections in the background reflect everything that you're essentially doing in real time, right? I'm not entirely sure if the original game achieved this reflection in the same fashion, but it's thanks to the updated graphics for this actual collection that we're able to see everything, you know, not only in widescreen, but in high definition as well. Right, so what Nick just did there, he did damage abuse to not have to take that guy out, because unfortunately he poses an actual threat or an obstacle, right, to actually go into this next section. And this is what he's doing right now, this sort of clipping thing. He grabbed the Lakiri. There's actually no collision in that subsection of the platform, so he's actually able to just throw it through the wall. There aren't a whole lot of locations in this game that you can actually do that, so we want to be able to take advantage wherever, whenever possible. Right, so he just actually did another plane skip there using the support jump. It's actually some invisible barrier that keeps Klonoa from doing it just with the electric enemy, which unfortunately the name is not coming to my head right now. But yes, you do need the Popka to do the actual clearing here. And then this room that he's clearing is very, very famous amongst us runners for Klonoa 2. This is where we like to flex our skills. We're going to call it that.
I love that room. It's so much fun.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff happening there, and that was actually a really nicely cleared
Pretty
room
good.
there. Very, very fast. And in contrast here, we're just going to go to this next section, and we just have, I want to say, maybe 10-15 seconds of just Klonoa falling. You see all these pretty colors surrounding him. Really a beautiful sight. Almost like you're inside of like a kaleidoscope. I think that's what they're called, right? You put your eye against the eyepiece and you just rotate some sort of handle and it changes colors and patterns.
So our final puzzle here in the mountains. There's a little optimization here. We throw a boomy, leave the room, come back in, and the boomy's exploded. It's a lot quicker to do it that way. It's the only time in the entire game where we will use that trick. You could do it in other rooms, but there's no use for it. It's really weird that we only have one use for it throughout the entire game.
Right. And I was gonna say this section's actually made a whole lot shorter thanks to Popka, because otherwise we would have to do 2 extra trips to grab the Boomy and bring it to the same room with the Lakiri and be able to complete the puzzle. Essentially, we're getting this Lakiri to be blue, to hit the blue gem that was in the other room entering this section. We are nearing the end of the level here. He has entered the door. It's unfortunate that we're skipping this cutscene because it's actually very impactful in regards to the story. A sort of self-reflection of sorts, and I'm not even meaning that in a punny way, because there is a big mirror in that room. But rest assured, I can confirm that is a very crucial cutscene to the story.
At this moment in the game, Lolo is going through a bit of a crisis. Lolo is a priestess in training, and because things are starting to go wrong, our main antagonist, Leorina, looks like she may have her own ring. We're trying to get to the bells before she does, and she's starting to have a crisis of confidence and is really wondering whether she's cut out for it. So much so that she's actually abandoned us. During this first section of this boss fight, Palante, we can't use our ring. Luckily, there's no enemies to hit anyway. But right now, she is just sat on the ledge at the side, not helping us because she doesn't think that she is worthy of the title of priestess.
Just also in conjunction with the soundtrack, it just kind of gives that sort of like melancholy feeling, but also this sense of urgency and upbeat. It's really also another one of those tracks that's one of my personal favorites. And then we got the second phase here. Yes. Oh, I'm really hoping he gets the fast chicken. Essentially, what we're going to be doing here, what he's going to be doing here is trying to get Palante dead within 1 cycle of him spawning enemies that we can use to throw at him.
Yes!
Let's go!
Come on, Moo! That last move was really slow.
That's what we
KFC!
Call it. The fast chicken strat.
The first 2 moves that came towards me are always in the same position. The speeds they come towards you can vary. They're always in the same position. The last 3 are completely random as to where they come from and where they go. So I got really lucky with the RNG, so that gave me like a really easy setup to do. But you very quick, if you don't get that done all in one go, that's 20-30 seconds lost.
Very painful 20 seconds. I can confirm that.
We just went back to Bagaji, so I will hand it over to
folks. We're raising money for Equality Texas. Please get some more donations in. We've got the Frogun incentive for tomorrow, that brutal rush, boss rush category with even harder patterns than the standard boss rush. It's going to be wild to see. I hope we can get it to happen. It is $600, but it is all night long. We'll be working on that, and then throughout the entirety of Frogun. Hopefully that'll stay open. You see the countdown when you go to the Tiltify link. Remember to donate and check the incentive for Frogun. We're raising money for Equality Texas. Thank you.
All right. That was thank you. So we're actually here for the second time in Layla Kusha. However, there is this interesting gimmick where Klonoa only has so much oxygen to go off of. That's the little bar that's in the top right. Thankfully, we're going to be moving quick enough here to where we don't actually have to worry about, I guess, him having to take a breath of air, which would be expelled by those little statues in these rooms. Not entirely sure what they're called canonically, but they're in image of the actual priestess, I believe. And thankfully, when we actually come to the outside section, we don't have to worry about the noxious gases, suffocating Klonoa.
Gotcha. It's useful to have a move coming in here because I'm going to do a death wart. I'm not going to grab that clock. Instead, I'm going to throw that move. Oh. Or I'll throw this Lakuri instead, because that one decided to die on me. There we go. Throw that Lakuri over at that clock. Not get that clock. And now all we're going to do is come outside, jump down into the river here, and we will now respawn at the clock that I hit on the other side of the room.
Example of a death warp there too, actually. Despite being very tight to hit that checkpoint, we do have a couple more of those coming up. There's a total for, I think, all visions specifically in this category, I think 7 or 8 utilizable death warps. And what I mean by utilizable is that they actually, you know, have an impact on the run, right? So one other thing that I'm actually going to mention here is in the following room, I actually made this discovery myself. It's a super jump that puts you right next to the 5th Moment doll. So I'm going to see if Nick here can actually get it first try. It would be really cool if he does.
It is a really cool jump. Nope. Nope. Come on.
Just puts you right
there
next
we go.
to it. And thankfully, we don't have to do the puzzle in this area because we do have
it's such a...
But otherwise, that room actually takes a significant amount of time to clear.
Final room.
There was this one trick that Nick kept trying to get, which I think is something you can complete in the original. This might not be something to add in the actual tech that's not doable on KPRS, so I'm not entirely sure, but essentially you can actually hit that pendulum from the opposite side and just have it sway forward and back so it hits the obstacle there without having to go, you know, in that direction.
Yeah, it's just one trick that I could never replicate in this that I can do in the PS2 version. Main difference with the PS2 version is the fact that the PS2 version's ran in 4.3 rather than 16.9, so that does have an effect. There was actually a box despawn in that level, one of the a jewel despawn. One of the first jewels that I had to build up a Lakuri for. In the PlayStation 2 version, assuming you use Popka to jump straight up onto the first platform, it will despawn it, but it doesn't work in this version. I say it's one of the only examples of a trick in the original PlayStation 2 version that doesn't work.
Right, and
in
now
this
we've
one.
arrived to Dark Sea of Tears. Let's just go ahead and say something here. Then All Visions, this stage is actually not pretty bad. This were 100% run. There's a very, very nasty set of gems at the end of the level that puts you right at the end of the level trigger to essentially beat the level. So if you miss those gems, you unfortunately lose 3 minutes of time and have to come back and get all of the gems once again. And it's not like the Moment dolls where they stay collected after you actually collect them. The gems are always coming back every time you load the level. Very particularly painful to complete, and I'm just speaking because it's something that I'm focusing on myself right now.
I'm not brave enough for 100%. 100% requires 150 Dreamstones in every level, as well as all Moment dolls. In most levels, there are exactly 150. There are a couple levels that have slightly more. You just need to hit the 150 cap. But yeah, it's a very technical run.
And in also that regards to, it's I was gonna say something that slipped my mind. Because of the death warp strategies that we actually get access to via the All Visions, not having to worry about losing moment progression, it actually allows us to save more time. And I think with the gems, I'm going to say here too, you can actually route some of the gems out because you only have to hit that 150 cap, and that's something that I'm experimenting with myself as well. But I'm hoping Nick actually gets to do some 100% runs at some point. That would be pretty interesting to see.
Haven't really seen it, but the reason this is called the Dark Sea of Tears is, well, it's dark for a start. But there is more to it. Like the previous level, we are actually on some sort of oxygen counter. You'll see there's some like blue circles in the background, and there's been these bright enemies with halos on them. And if I don't capture one of those halo enemies, that was a deliberate death walk, by the way, the blue circles will eventually creep in, darkness will creep in, and it will slowly kill Klonoa. So have to recharge on them every so often. Whoops. So I'm,
Right. And so here's another interesting thing. This level is
to
actually more of a threat on the PlayStation 2 version just because of how the lighting in that version of the game works. Here you're actually able to see for the most part, I say it, because of the actual lighting. And actually, if I remember correctly, the lighting was one of the things that the developers actually had trouble in implementing for this remake, in Klonoa 2 specifically. And I'm wanting to believe that it was stages like this where they had some trouble. I don't know if Nick has anything else to add in that regard.
Yeah, in the PlayStation 2 version, your vision is severely lacking in that level. Everything is shrouded in darkness, and there's an aura around Klonoa that shows his immediate surroundings. So it's a lot easier to see in that one. We've done Sea of Tears, we've done Dark Sea of Tears, now we're going to do Empty Sea of Tears, which isn't the same level. Unlike the previous one, Dark Sea of Tears was just a reskin of Sea of Tears. This is a completely different level. And this is, for me, this has always been the level that sort of shows where the stakes are picking up. You know, the game's starting to get serious now. You know, what's happened is we went back to the Sea of Tears, so returned to that bell that we rang at the very start of the game, and unfortunately, Leorina got there before us. She rang the bell herself with her evil dark ring, which she can wield because we discovered that she used to be a priestess in training until she was cast out for having weird ideas. I don't know. And because she rang it, she was able to drain the Sea of Tears, and she has revealed a passageway to the fifth and forgotten kingdom, the Kingdom of Sorrow, which is where we are heading to now. That is a particularly nasty Momet doll to grab, but it is not the nastiest in this level.
So another thing that's interesting to note is that you can't actually hit the Momet dolls or actually any of the collectibles trapped inside bubbles using the moves. You actually have to get Klonoa to pass through them, and it's a very interesting sort of deal because it essentially forces you to position yourself. I think the only other exception is you hitting them with your ring. That's actually how you collect the fourth Momet doll, but the timing to do so is very, very tight. A common place to lose time, and it's actually a very significant amount of time. We're talking 30 to 35 seconds. We're actually coming across the room where it's located. I'm not entirely sure if Nick's going to need the mental power here to focus and actually try to grab it.
I'm gonna concentrate on it. I hate it. I hate this. This is one of my least favorite Momet dolls in the entire game. Oh.
Yes, unfortunately he didn't miss it, so he will have to die to go back to give it a second shot.
Unfortunately, because of the nature of the run, this isn't one of those categories where we can just go, "Oh well, we missed it." So we'll still carry on as though it's all visions, and we just won't, we won't worry about it. We cannot do the bonus visions if we don't get them all, so they have to be collected.
Ah, yes.
Gotcha.
There again, very, very tight, chat. Multiple of Nick's runs and my own runs, we've had missed that specific Momet doll. That's why it's a very, very nasty one to collect. I think for the slider levels themselves, it's probably, for this stage at least, the hardest one to collect. Right. On top of that, yeah, sorry, Nick.
There you go.
I was going to say, just wrapping up, we did mention they were talking about 100% earlier. This is one of the stages where even just a baseline getting 150 gems is over 150 gems is possible, because the game gives you 4 extra gems just generously if you collect every gem, right? So you can essentially miss 4 of them and still get a 100% clear, but still very, very difficult level to clear, not only for all visions but for any sort of category.
Now, meddling with dark magic is always dangerous. If anyone needs an example to show someone who might be meddling in dark magic, then here is your warning. Here is our antagonist, Leorina. Here is our antagonist, Leorina. This is the same character. And this is what the dark magic has done to her.
This one squash Klonoa. Thankfully, we have these guys to help us stop her from doing that. So it's a little violent if you think about it, because it's just uppercutting.
Oh, I did that a bit too early. Oh, she popped my Erbil. It's not a euphemism, I assure you.
There's actually, I think for this stage, there is a chance that you actually get a good set of spawns for them, and you're able to finish this first phase pretty quick. Nick didn't go for a short death warp here that actually skips the animation of Leorina attaching herself back to the battle platform here, but I think that saves around 2 to 3 seconds. Right, but still a good clear for the second phase. And we have a third and final phase where she turns completely dark, and her jumps are a lot more threatening this time. And I'm kind of being slightly sarcastic about that. It's the same way you beat her in the first phase, but of course, right, it's the end of the fight. So the stakes are high here.
Cool, that's a really good fight.
That.
No damage. Could have been faster. It is in the first phase. It is possible to get double hits off on her if you get in the right position. But again, a lot of RNG in that fight, with mainly where she lands. Every time you hit her, she can land in a completely different place. But that was pretty clean. I'm pretty pleased with that. All right, remember I said earlier, if you like Tishra's arc, we're going back. This is the longest vision in the game. And it also contains 3 very tricky skips.
Death warps. And I think we did mention this earlier when we were on our first visit to Ishra's. Yes, there are 3 very difficult death warps to accomplish, and essentially what's going to happen is Nick's going to be taking a death as soon as we activate a trigger of some sort. Really, it'll be good to kind of see and explain when we get to the actual section, but there's this first part where he has to get the Moment dolls before actually going to clear these sections. And it's convenient for this stage because each section for each engine actually houses 2 Moment dolls, so it's good to keep track in that fashion.
I am hoping I get some extra lives in this level as well, because I'm a little low. Particularly as I'm going to be doing a bunch of death warps, hopefully.
Thankfully, there are floating eggs, Skimpoko eggs, actually, that have lives in this stage. I believe there's 2. There's one in the second, during the second engine, or the path there, and I think I actually showed Nick where that one was. If you remember where it is, you can probably go ahead and grab that. It'll help you out.
Oh.
Yes,
I'll let that be me explode.
Give you the focus.
Okay, hopefully that's gone right.
Nicely
yes!
done.
Engine skip 1 done.
Very scary. Very
and a couple
scary.
of extra lives.
And actually, it's something that can happen, and it's actually happened to me and Nick at the same time. in the same places actually, is that you can bonk the actual boomy against the egg and not have it go into the hole. Fortunately, that means if you die in that same instance, you get sent back with no bomb activated, meaning you have to traverse the whole section over again.
So to actually explain what happened there was a checkpoint in that room which I deliberately didn't collect. However, I also collected a checkpoint right at the start of the level. And what happens is when you throw the idea of, as you saw in the first Ishra's Arc level, we were throwing Liqueurs in to start the engines. Well, their solution for stopping the arc now is to throw boomies in it to make them explode, which is a really bad idea. But it works, and that's what they do. When we throw a boomy into one of the engines, we'll be doing it for both of the other engines coming forwards, there is a short time period where the game considers that the engine has started to explode and triggers the explosion sequence. It then gives us a checkpoint, and there is a very small frame, and I'm literally talking a select amount of frames in the game where the checkpoint hasn't been triggered, but the engine exploding has. And by taking a death during those frames, the engine is considered to be exploding, but we return to the previous checkpoint that we hit. We're going to try again in Engine 2. Now, Engine 2 is the most difficult of the 3 engines to do it on. So first thing I'm going to do again is I'm going to take 2 hits so that I am on only 1 health. I'm not going to get that checkpoint. I'm going to throw the boomy and take a death. And if I've got this right, unfortunately I was too slow on that one. So I don't think I've ever got this one on the Fantasy Reverie version of the game. I've done it on the PlayStation 2 version, but the timing is so tight. So basically what happened there was I triggered the engine to explode. However, I died after the checkpoint was triggered, so it just restarted us from there. All we've got to do is just leave. Just get to an outside area where it explodes, and then we get grabbed by Leorina and Tat, who have now had a change of heart. You know, they realise the evil doings of their ways, and they now want to help. Classic antagonist turned friend.
It's actually really interesting because the second Death Warp, while being the hardest to complete for this stage, it only gives, I think, a total of 20 seconds, and it's actually the shortest benefit here. So it's kind of a contradictory thing because the third engine is actually the easiest Death Warp to get, and it gives the biggest amount of time save.
It's really nice that it works that way around.
Right.
So now we just have this little section of just running around, dodging exhausts.
Right. I remember watching you do this game one time, and you had made a comment about how hitting those, they kind of look like those push pop candies, right? But they actually have like lemons or fruit inside of them. Right. I'm not entirely sure.
They? Like
these like orange slices.
These big blue, flames coming out. They're clearly exhaust fumes, which makes sense on a boat that's got engines. But why is there fruit extruding from the bottom of a boat? It doesn't make any sense.
Or something like that. Yeah.
I'd never considered that before.
I can come up with.
That is the explanation I'm using going forwards.
They're just trying to avoid scurvy. In a boat or a floating ark that's filled with lava. You can't make this stuff up, folks.
Oh yeah, there's also lava for reasons. Lunatea is a very special place.
But you really see how expansive this arc is. For example, just like this shot. If it wasn't already immediately obvious during our first visit that this place is huge, then this is going to sell it.
Oh.
Now, this section is a little tight because you actually have these moving trampolines. Very easy to fall into the lava there if you're not careful. Nice. So another interesting thing that can happen in this section specifically is this spiker here, and that's what they're called. I don't know if we mentioned that earlier. They're these spiky little gray enemies. They can actually despawn here, and I think Nick was trying to do a bit of an optimization where you can time a double jump with the boomy just right to explode the rock without having to actually wait for it to explode. And we got another Lakiri puzzle here, except normally you would have to kind of set yourself up here to do this in standard mode, because we have the support mode or support Popka. We don't have to worry about that. It really just makes a whole lot of the game a lot easier. Think about it.
Another little cool puzzle trick here that we're going to do. If you throw a boomy across a room, after a certain amount of time in the air, it will just explode. So we time throwing that boomy at exactly the right moment, so that it will explode in the air, but be close enough to that box to hit it. There is actually one other use of that trick in the game. It was in the underground factory, and it's a very, very difficult trick, which, to be honest, the amount of time it saves, I waste more time trying to get it right than I do actually saving it when I do. So I don't tend to go for it during marathons.
For the original game, there's some sort of visual cue on the Excite boomy and the actual boomies themselves, where you have like a flashing animation. I don't think it's completely apparent here for Fantasy Reverie series. But we do have the third Death Warp coming up here. So yes, we'll just go ahead and let Nick do that.
Take damage. Might be a bit too slow. It was too slow.
And that's what we're alluding to, it being tricky. Yeah,
I threw the boomy. I threw the boomy like in the middle of right in the middle of it. I should have moved slightly to the side so that I could get down a bit quicker.
Right. And well, thankfully, because we do have Popka, we can just do a jump there, so you not have to wrap around, which would take more time. Right, but of course, the time save that comes from these death warps cannot be understated.
So 1 out of 3 engine skips. It's okay. I'd have preferred 2. 3 would have been incredible. I've still not done it on Fantasy Reverie, so that's okay. Right, we now go into this is the last traditional platforming level outside of the bonus levels. This is the Kingdom of Sorrow. It's not the longest level in the game, though it does feel like it at times. The Ishra's Arc Revisited that we've just done was the longest vision in the game. We are now in the secrets Kingdom of Sorrow. This is a place that time and the people of Lunatea have forgotten. It is, very sad, and the main sort of thing coming out of this is that we learn that it's okay to be sad sometimes. We all need to cry at times. We all need to feel sorrow at times. And the Kingdom of Lunatea has forgotten that. They've forgotten how to cry. They've forgotten how to feel sorrowful and to not express just joy and war and all the other expressions that we've been dealing with throughout. All throughout the game, during the cutscenes, obviously we've skipped them all, Klonoa has been hearing this dream voice in his head screaming out for help, help me, help me. And up until this point we had no idea who that was, but we will soon find out who it was. It's a very somber level, but it's a very, very good learning curve. There are a lot of puzzles, there's a lot of platforming, and it really does make sure that you are tested on all of the things you've been learning. How are you able to grab these, grab lums in midair at a quick pace like that. Your shots are accurate. Can you do puzzles if you really understood what you're doing with these liqueurs? Because that's going to come up later as well. So it's a real final test of all of your skill throughout the game so far.
I agree with that statement. In fact, I was going to make a mention of that if it wasn't already mentioned here. Gameplay aside, though, this stage itself is really just a giant allegory for the events that took place in the first game. I know Nick personally hasn't played Door to Phantom Mile, but as a person, or me specifically, that's played both games, you can kind of draw connections between the events that happened in the first game and this stage. It's to the point where there's actual leitmotifs in the soundtrack that called back to the first game here. It's like you have the somber guitar theme for Grandpa's theme, I believe, in Klonoa 1. It's a bit out of context mentioned, but still pretty important unless you appreciate really what's going on here. This is kind of Klonoa's going through sort of transition, right? And also going to fight the King of Sorrow in the Kingdom of Sorrow. Really just a whole mix of emotions, right? And like Nick said earlier, it's really important to not forget to cry, because these are feelings that we feel, and it's important that we acknowledge them and don't just bottle them up. What we're seeing here spot really quick. What we're seeing here is that these gaps are going to slowly be growing a little bit bigger and bigger each time. It's going to get to the point where we're going to actually have sections where we're just going to have to wait literal seconds, even probably, I want to say maybe like a minute to actually get through. But Nick, you were going to say something.
I was just going to say you're going to make me cry in a minute.
Yes, you just
very moving.
Feel your feelings.
Klonoa 2 has always been a very special game for me. The first time I ever played it was when I first got my PlayStation 2. My family decided to buy a PS2. My dad wanted a DVD player, and decided, well, if we're going to get a DVD player, why don't we get a PlayStation 2? So Nick and his brother have something to play. And of course, when you buy a PlayStation 2, obviously you don't really get them anymore. But when you buy a PlayStation 2, you get a demo disc with it, and boy, don't we all love demo discs? I really wish they'd bring back demo discs. Demo discs were great, but one of the demos that was on that disc was Klonoa 2. And I enjoyed it, and my brother enjoyed it, but more than anything, it was actually my mother who enjoyed it the most. There were parts of 2 levels. You got about 2/3 of the Sea of Tears and about 2/3 of Jungle Slider. And my mum liked it so much that she then bought us a copy of the game in full. I don't think she ever managed to finish it. She played quite a bit of it. And over time, I learned to enjoy it. I completed it 100% a few different times. And then one year, years later, when I went to university, I went to Lancaster University to study theatre. Which is, you'd never have guessed that I was of a theatre background. I was the president of the gaming society there, and we decided to do a 24-hour LAN, and we decided that we were going to showcase speedruns on the projector. And I'd never done a speedrun before, and I thought about all the games that I'd learned and that I knew, and I thought, what's the game that I think I could do a speedrun for? And this was it. I learned Klonoa 2 for that LAN. Showcased it for the first time there. It was the first time I ever showcased it at that LAN was the first time I ever got Polonte's phase 2 done in one go, which was an amazing feeling. And yeah, ever since then, that LAN was about 12 years ago. And it's only in the last couple of years that I've become a serious speedrunner. I'm more well known in speedrunning communities for running Metal Gear Solid games, but Klonoa is the one game that I've always come back to. And I love this trick. 1, 2, 3.
Oh. Yes.
I love that trick when I get it right. There we go. Second time's
Right, but
second
really
time's the
coming back to
charm.
this sort of discussion where you have a personal connection to the game, I think you should conclude those thoughts, because I honestly find it pretty impactful to have this sort of personal connection to the game, and also, as you say, a professional connection via speedrunning.
It's just, you know, it's a game I've always come back to and redone, and you know, for the longest time trying to the PS2 version of this, as you can probably tell from my accent, I am not American, but I am British. So I'm used to playing the PAL version of the game, and Klonoa is quite unique for PlayStation 2 games because it actually lets you select your refresh rates at the start of the game. You have the option of playing in 50 hertz or 60 hertz. The problem is if you play in 50 hertz, the game runs at a slower speed. And I only learned that several years after starting to learn how to speedrun this, and discovered I was automatically losing 20 minutes every run through picking 50 hertz over 60 hertz. The problem with that, playing the 60 hertz version on this, is there is a refresh rate error, and every time you transition between rooms, the refresh rate of the game will go back down to 50 and come back up again. And on most capture cards, that is a problem. Capture cards do not like frame rates changing, refresh rates changing. So trying to capture and stream the PS2 version has always been the biggest pain to try and do. So it was an absolute delight. I was absolutely knocked out of the park. Right? It was a Nintendo Direct, probably this time last year. And just out of the blue, there was no warning. There'd not been any sort of hints or anything. Actually, there had a trademark had been registered a year or so before, but nothing ever came out of it. Then all of a sudden, Nintendo Direct, they announced Klonoa Fantasy Reverie, and I was like, please tell me it's not a Nintendo exclusive. Now I do have a Switch, and I was like, I'll get it on Switch and I'll speedrun it on Switch, but please. And then the day after, Capcom came out, Namco came out and said it is also coming to other platforms, including PC, and I was just like over the moon. I was just like, I finally get to play this on PC without messing around with capture cards and delays and refresh rates and different screens. This game has been up and down for me over the years so much, and it's always a joy to showcase it at events because of the connections that I have with it. One day, I will finish Klonoa 1, I promise.
The Fantasy Reverie series, unless you plan on spending a good amount of money on the original PlayStation 1 discs, which go, I think, on average for around $400 to $500. And we're talking about complete in-box copies. I think just disc only, you'll probably find a $100 offset. Of course, you did say you are from the UK, so that amount of money might also kind of be different. I'm speaking in terms of USD. Right, but back to the point you were saying about being able to capture this game. Even with the proposed best way to capture Klonoa 2 Lunatea's Veil on PS2 being using a backwards compatible PS3, which is a piece of hardware that's actually kind of hard to come by these days just because the console is so old. There's only 4 models, 2 of them being hardware-based emulation. The other 2 are software-based. I myself actually have a backwards compatible PS3, hardware backwards compatible. And this actual issue of refresh rate switching, it's still notable even with that being said, but it's not nearly as bad as trying to capture this on a native PS2. That being said, yes, I was also very excited when this game came out, for this collection specifically, because not only was I getting Phantom Isle, or Door to Phantom Isle, which is a game that I also have a personal connection with, I said, dating back some time, but also getting to play Klonoa 2 Lunatea's Veil, which is a game that I personally completed, I think last year, sometime in October. It was the first time that I played the sequel to this game. It was really quite an experience, not only just because it's in HD, but it's really bringing this game more attention based on just having been, under the shadows for quite some time.
These aren't the only 2 games in the series. There were also 2 Game Boy Advance games, Dream Champ Tournament and Dream Champ Tournament 2. They are very good Game Boy Advance games. I have played through those as well. There was also a PS1 volleyball game, which is kind of interesting. All right, so we completed Indecision Pass, which was the last level in the game. We now have all of the Momet dolls. So we have returned to Momet House here in Jolian to unlock the final 2 bonus levels. The first one is that one. That is the Chamber of Fun. I'm now just going to visit him one more time to unlock Chamber of Horrors, which is the second of the 2 bonus levels. So now we get the All Visions part of this run. So we're going to go into Chamber of Fun. There's no Momet dolls to collect. These are just really fast, fun-paced levels with some really cool movement.
It gives the end game really a new meaning for this category. Because again, like we stated in the beginning, it's no longer just about, getting from point A to point B. We have these 2 extra levels that are really going to showcase the platforming excellence and things that we've built up during the actual playthrough, right? Sort of a test of platforming mastery, everything the game has to offer.
Luckily, these levels are made much easier through the use of Popka. Like we can skip the first half of that little section there. Ignore those moves. And one more room and we're done in the Chamber of Fun. Chamber of Fun's relatively easy. You don't actually only need I think 6 Momet dolls to unlock it, whereas Chamber of Horrors is all
it was a point that I
all
failed
of them.
to mention earlier. Just for whatever reason, you only need 6 to actually get to this stage, where you need to get all of the actual dolls to finish, unlock Chamber of Horrors.
So that's Chamber of Fun. One more to do. Chamber of Horrors. We are supposed to go and see Momet after completing them, and he gives us a reward, but we won't be doing that. But we will move on to Chamber of Horrors. Ooh, and I've already
He's
already taken a death there. Whoops.
Grape soda.
Try that again.
I mean, I don't know what else to call that purple sludge at the bottom of the stage.
I'd say I'd take that first room a little bit easier. Hopefully, I can pick up the pace for the rest of the rooms.
So one other thing that I guess I could probably mention here is that these stages, while they're fun, they don't actually have any sort of tie back to the original story. Really, they're just kind of here. Like, you do get them for rescuing the Momet dolls and stuff, and there is a slight connection in that regard, but otherwise, they're just really fun extra levels. There's like a post game that you can do. Right. Thankfully for this game, or for Klonoa 2, you can actually unlock them during your main playthrough, whereas the original Door to Phantom Isle and actually Phantom Isle here in Fantasy Reverie series, you unlock the extra visions after beating the game. I say visions, well, there's only actually one extra vision for Door to Phantom Isle. For better or for worse, it makes things a lot more streamlined in that regard.
Gotcha. Nice.
So there are certainly a lot of puzzles in this stage that Nick is just completely skipping over. In my case, I'm actually having to do all of these Lakiri puzzles for 100%. And they're not completely hard, but they do require a lot of going back and forth, as you can imagine. This is the final room that we're entering. So it's a lot of stuff that's happening that we can just move through here using Popka.
Nice finish. And that's it. That's the Chamber of Horrors. So we have only one last hurdle. Now that we have completed the 2 extra levels, we can go all the way back into the Kingdom of Sorrow. Don't worry, we're not going to go through the Kingdom of Sorrow level again. We're going to journey across the world map, back to where we came from, and we are going to enter the final boss, the King of Sorrow himself, here in the Terminus of Tears. The fight is split up into 2 halves. We have this board section against whatever this thing is. The cutscene that we have skipped gives no explanation as to what is happening. We go and meet the King of Sorrow. He does some sort of flash in front of us, and when we wake up, we are falling into this ring, and our board is with us. And then this thing attacks us. I don't know if it's like some sort of ship and the King of Sorrow is inside it. I mean, the health bar suggests as such, but there is no explanation at all in the cutscene as to what this thing is. It's very weird.
Like there was probably some form of cut content from this game that I would actually explain what this section is, or sorry, what this thing we're fighting is. Just like has a giant arm throwing things at you. Those I don't even know what you would call them. They just have the giant red eyes. Very thematically appropriate with the design of the fight. And even just in contrast with what you're kind of going through, because you have like this blue wave that you're riding and throwing things in a very antique-looking enemy. That being said, this is the final fight.
All right, now it's time for the final showdown. The boss is still in 2 phases. He had two health bars. So that's the King of Sorrow in the middle. What he should actually look like. So I'm going to destroy all of these spheres, which will also hurt if I don't hit them in the right place. So that's phase 1. Oh, sorry, he has 2 phases, but he only has 1 health bar. So time will be when I land the final hit and his health goes to 0. I can't really do a countdown or anything. But I'll try and declare when the final hit's going to be. 2 more hits. Last hit.
Let's go.
Time.
Good job.
And that is Klonoa 2, Lunatea's Veil, All Visions. Our final official time is the IGT that was seen on screen there, 1 hour, 14 minutes and 59 seconds, plus the 2 IGTs of the chamber levels, because they don't count towards the overall IGT. I will just skip the cutscenes to allow us to move on to the credits, where it has some very nice music. But yeah, that was Klonoa 2 Lunatea's Veil. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed seeing this showcase, which has shown every level that's on offer. Thank you very much to Neil for co-commentating. It's been a pleasure having you here. If you wanna see more of Klonoa, if you wanna get involved in Klonoa yourself, go to speedrun.com, search for Klonoa, and you'll find links to the Klonoa speedrunning Discord server. There's it's a wonderful community full of lots of people ready to help you with any game in the series. Klonoa 1 and 2 are very much the main 2 games that get looked at, but there are people who run the Game Boy Advance games, the Dream Champ tournament games, and yeah, as I say, it's just a nice, friendly speedrunning environment. If you want to catch me in any of my runs, twitch.tv/NickRPGreen. You can also find me on Twitter, NickRPGreen again.
Yes, I can actually
Neil,
plug
where can
my,
people find you?
socials here too, right? So I also do live streams of this game. In fact, that's this game and also Door to Phantom Mile. My Twitch handle is at NeilLegendVT. So basically my name, but you add a VT at the end. And my previous runs are always uploaded at youtube.com. On youtube.com with the handle just at NeilLegend. Yeah, but a pretty common runner of this game, and as Nick was mentioning earlier with the Discord server, you can find both of us there. Actually, you can always ask us some questions if you have some interest in trying to do some of these runs yourself.
But yeah, thank you very much to Speed Stuff for Translive for having us and letting me showcase this absolutely wonderful game. It's aged beautifully. You know, this game came out in 2001, and just a small lick of paint makes it still look gorgeous and play fantastically. So even if you don't want to speedrun it, I'd highly recommend just giving the game a go. But yeah, thank you very much. I will hand it back over to Brad.
Thank you both for this delightful showcase. Klonoa 2, or Klonoa in general, is just like Kirby. Like, it's cute on the surface, and then you have these really hard-hitting, either emotional or just difficult kind of level sections. Just well done, both of you.